The Stone Disclosure.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Stone Disclosure. I am your host, Trey, and it feels good being back doing this. I just launched the previous episode on YouTube. For anybody that missed the live, it is on YouTube at the Stone Disclosure. You can find the link in my profile. So go check that out. We got a lot of shorts on there too. We got a lot of cool stuff on there, and we got a lot of more stuff coming down the line. Now, this episode is something that I think is near and dear to everybody, and I think it's something that everybody can relate to. And it's dealing with loss. Now, what I like to call it is more leveraging loss, and I think everybody has had a situation in their life where they've dealt with some type of loss, whether it be a relationship, whether it be a loved one, whether it be a friendship, whether it be a job. Loss is essentially anything that is taken away from your life that had value. That's the best way I can describe it, to keep it just very plain and simple. If it mattered to you and it's gone, it's a loss. If it meant nothing, then it's trash. Depending on the type of loss that you've gone through is very dependent on not only the time frame it's going to take to bounce back from something like that, but also how you manage something like that, because some losses are permanent and will never change, and some losses can always change over time. Now, in order to give a little bit more context to that, if you were in a relationship and it no longer is part of your life, there's always a chance that it can come back. But if it's a loved one who passed away, that's a lot more permanent than anything else. Now, one thing I will always say is a lot of people try to compare people's losses and say, well, why are you mad about this? This doesn't mean any sense. To me, this is not a big deal, blah, 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 blah. Listen, loss is individual to anybody. Loss is legitimately like a fingerprint. Everybody feels something differently. Someone may look at the loss of a pet and say, well, it was just a dog, it was just a cat, it was just a turtle. Whereas you have memories with that pet, you have a history, you spent a good block of your life, and in that block of your life, this thing was constantly a present. And now it's not, right? So we can feel the grief very similarly to any type of loss. Some people may say, oh, well, it's just a relationship, no big deal. Yeah, it is a big deal. It meant something to you. That's why you were in it. That's why you were there. Now, again, if it wasn't a great relationship, it is what it is. But as long as it has any type of value to your overall life and your overall psyche, it will cause you trauma dealing with it no matter what. Now, normally when you go through a loss, the first thing you're going to feel is some sort of grief. Now, grief is normal. If you're not feeling any type of grief from a loss, then maybe it wasn't that big of a loss. Or maybe you're still in the shock phase of it all. But eventually, grief will kick in, it will creep into your psyche, and you will go through it. Now, grief is the state of being. Grief is how am I right now. It is the pain from it, the shock of it. It's the reaction to the event. So if you think about it in a simple context, grief is the car itself. Right? It's the state of being, it's the thing, it's the item, it's the emotion that you are feeling from the incident that happens. The thing with grief is that grief is the emotional response to the loss. So because it meant something to you, it does elicit emotion, and that emotional response is what we call grief. Everyone's going to go through it, everybody's going to feel it, and managing that grief is going to be what's paramount towards how long it will take you to recover. Now, one thing we have to remember about grief is it's never going to be permanent. You're never going to permanently be in a state of grief at any point in time. It will be there, and then at one point it will be gone. And it won't happen again until an event like that happens again. Because again, it is just the state of being and a response to whatever loss it is. So when you have a new loss, you'll go through grief again. What a lot of people do is they assume that grief and grieving are the same thing, and they're not. If grief is the car, grieving is the journey to whatever destination you're trying to get to. Grieving is going to be the hard one. Grieving is prolonged, and sometimes grieving never goes away. You'll always have it. For some people, it will always be there. Something will happen that will trigger a response to everything, and then now you're grieving again. Going through the grieving process can reignite grief in some way, shape, or form, and anybody who's gone through a loss can attest to this. Last year, I lost a very close friend of mine that I've known since high school, and it was very sudden. It was very hard to deal with because nobody saw it coming. And I knew this friend was going through a lot of things in his personal life, and he really kind of kept it close to chest. And this is why I love this podcast, because I was doing episodes and I was doing TikTok shorts and stuff like that. And he one day followed it and he told me, hey, I came across it on my For You page. And I was like, okay, well, cool. He's like, I never knew you did stuff like this. I'm like, I think for me, it was just more like me dealing with my own stuff and just kind of helped me through it. And he watched every video and he tuned into like every episode of the pod, and he would like message me just randomly and like ask me questions like, hey, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with that? And I kind of saw a progression with him from when I first started talking to him to where he was like right about before everything happened. Like he got back into the gym because, he let his health decline, and his doctor was saying like there's certain things you got to do. He started taking his diet seriously. He started reconnecting with his family. He was just, he seemed like he was on such a good path to recovering himself. And then he passed. And I think for me personally, I think it hit home in a very, very, very rough and aggressive way, because here we saw this person who we initially connected with, who was not probably in the best state, and we saw just growth. And we saw that the grieving process was working. The grieving process was getting him to what he believed he needed. And that's great, right? That's what we want overall. And then for things to kind of happen the way they happened, it was a tough pill to swallow. One thing I remember, one of my last conversations with him was this exact topic. And he was like, I'm just dealing with the grief of it all. And I'm like, are you dealing with the grief? Or are you just going through the grieving process? And the more he kind of described it, that like every day is different and every day is hard, and some days are easy to manage and some days aren't. Some days I can walk out the house and feel perfectly fine, and other days I walk out the house and remember things and memories and events, and they just kind of like punch you in the gut. And I'm like, yeah, you're in that grieving process, and it's going to be up and down. It's going to just be in a cycle. And I saw just that transition, and I think that's what made me so happy about everything. But it is what it is, right? Now, when we talk about grief, we clearly know that there are going to be the 5 identified stages of grief. That's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Sometimes they're worded differently. These are the ones I stick to because these are the ones that I understand the best and I would say best appeal to me. just going through some of the things I've gone through. I've gone through a lot of loss in life, from friends to relationships to a marriage to just a bunch of things. Because again, I'm not going to make myself like some martyr. I know we've all gone through this. But we're going to go through these stages really quickly just so we're kind of all on the same page as to how we navigate these moving forward. Now, your first stage is going to be your denial state. It's going to be, no, that's not true. Like you just lost a parent. No, 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 no. They're not gone. They're going to come back. You just went through a traumatic relationship and there's a breakup and it's no, 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 no. We'll figure it out. No, no, no. They'll come back to me. And denial, I think, is the toughest of the five stages because denial is your brain being in so much shock from the experience that it is now formulating its own environment for safety. It is so traumatic to you and it is so harsh and it is so just in your face that you don't even have the time to kind of process anything. So you just deny that it happened. It's like losing a limb. And I don't know if anybody's heard of phantom limb syndrome, but there's situations where someone lost a body part and they believe that it's still there. They believe that it's still moving. And they'll go stand up to try to stand on that missing leg and then collapse because their brain has not fully registered yet that, like, no, this happened. This person is gone. This situation is a thing. And it's so afraid and it's in so much shock that it's wiring itself to say, no, that is not true. This person is still here. This breakup never happened. And you are trying to delude yourself into thinking that the truth isn't what it is. And that's why I think it's the hardest, because you're just such in a fog that it's hard for you to kind of break through that. The next stage that comes is anger. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You're mad at the world, you're mad at the situation, you're mad at the people involved, you're mad at yourself. You just don't know how to deal with this emotion. The gut punches hit you, and now that veil of denial is coming off. The paint is stripping. You're starting to see the cracks. You're starting to see that, no, like this might actually be true. It doesn't make sense anymore. And now your brain is starting to realize, well, no, this is the truth. This has happened. This breakup did happen. This death did happen. And you're just mad. You don't know how to deal with the emotion. And the easiest emotion that human beings understand is anger. So it's a natural progression. You're going to be in shock and believing that it's not true. And then as you start to realize that it's true, you're going to be mad at it. It's normal. Don't feel any type of way if you go through this. It is actually part of the process. After anger is what I call bargaining. Now, bargaining is when you're now starting to try to process everything, but you're still trying to process it in a way that benefits you and makes sense for you, just to calm your mind and to calm your emotional state. Now, what I will say with bargaining is, let's say there was a breakup, like the easiest way to put it. You've gone through the denial stage of, no, 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 we're not. Then you start to realize, no, we are broken up and this sucks, right? Now, in the bargaining stage is where you're trying to rationalize it. Well, is it anything I did? Is it something that they did? Well, it can't be true because of this. Or maybe if I try harder, then this will work. Or maybe if I call them, then this will work. Or maybe if I show up at their house with the boombox outside, like in the old school movies, it'll work. This is your brain trying to soothe itself and say, well, no, there's a reason and we can just fix it, right? And you're really just trying to calm your own psyche as you're processing the information, devoid of the anger. Because now you're understanding the anger doesn't make sense and you're trying to say, well, what will work? What can I do to resolve all of this? What can I do to bring everything back to balance? And I'll be honest with you, it's not going to work. You can't bargain with a party that is not present. If a person has passed away, they're gone. There's no bargaining in your situation. If a breakup happened and that person has said, no, I don't want to be with you, there is no bargaining that happens here. You are really just doing it to make it feel like there's something you can do, because you don't want to feel like a helpless individual in a situation We as people always want to exhibit some level of control and some level of understanding and some level of direction that we guide. And all this is doing is this bargaining stage is that. It's us trying to navigate to say, no, 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 I still have control of this situation. And in all honesty, you don't. Now, once you get through that and you start to realize that bargaining doesn't work, you get into a depressive state. Depression is very, very broad, and depression is very much on a spectrum. I think everybody assumes that depression is just going to be you locked up in a room, not wanting to talk to the world and hating life. I've gone through depression and it can take on many forms. A lot of you guys could be going through depression right now and you have no idea because you expect it to look a certain way and it doesn't. Depression could just be, I don't want to get up today. I'm in a state where I don't feel like I can manage pressure and stress. That is the simplest way to put depression into place. It's like a helpless feeling. It's a feeling of I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do, I don't have much direction right now. I'm just in a state of not knowing how to move. Like imagine you coming to a crossroads or a pitchfork and there's three different paths to take and you have no idea which one leads down which way. That moment where you're standing there trying to process it all is you putting yourself in a depressive state. So it can be very micro and it can be very major. Usually depending on the type of loss you're going through, it can kind of kick in with this. Usually it depends on the type of person and the type of personality that you have. You can be in it for a long time or you can be in it for a short time. It happens with everybody. We all go through it. It's just a matter of how do you navigate that part of it and kind of keep it moving. I'd say it's probably the second hardest state to be in because it really requires you to dial in with yourself. Now, denial is just autonomic. There's nothing you can really do. You kind of have to just fly through it and figure it out. And there's not really much help in the denial stage because people will come to you and tell you, no, that's not the situation. This is what's happening. No, this person is gone. No, this pet just died. No, this person left you. And it's like your brain can't process it. So there really is no assistance in the denial phase. You have to come to that conclusion on your own. And that's why it's the toughest. But depression is, I'd say, second hardest to deal with because you have option, you have help, you have people who can help you through. And it's not that you won't listen to them, it's just you need to get to a point where you can retain anybody's information. You have to kind of pull yourself out of it. It's good to have a good support system because then you can have friends who, and I had a lot of friends who did this for me. Hey man, what are you doing? Nothing, just chilling at home. All right, we're coming over. No, 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 no. Stay where you are. No, no, no. We're coming. They almost push you to react and to react out of that state that you're in regardless. You may go out with them and still freaking just be annoyed at the world and just not really yourself. But it's getting you out of that mindset even temporarily to give you that little bit of moment of clarity, like bringing you out. I'll tell you one story. I had friends who came, did the exact same thing, knocked on my door. I said, we're going for a drive. And they brought me to this like small neighborhood with like these $1 million homes. And it was just such a beautiful place to be. And we drove in a car, we drove around, we drove to a park, and there was like this little beach, a little beach inlet on this park. And as much as I couldn't see anything because it was dark and it was night, just being around the water and just hearing the water pulled me out of that state just a little bit, just enough. And in that little bit of space that I was able to generate there, you start thinking, and those thoughts stay in your head. And as time goes on, they just become stronger and stronger and stronger. And eventually you can pull yourself out of it. Now, this doesn't work for everybody. I always say if you are in a situation where you do feel like you are in that depression, you should seek help. You should talk to somebody because a second opinion and just having just additional clarity outside of your own is very pivotal for you to be able to make that shift. Now, the last stage of grief is acceptance. Acceptance is probably the most euphoric thing that you're ever going to go through. And I think everyone chases the acceptance, but you can't really obtain it unless you do the work. And what we do is we replace acceptance with coping, and they're not the same thing. Acceptance is truly looking at the situation and saying, hey, it is what it is. That's where we're at. That relationship, it's over. That person may move on and find somebody else and have a great and happy life without you. That person who passed away is gone. They will not be coming back. And all you have is the photos that you took and the memories that you have. Acceptance is looking back and saying, hey, did we have the best relationship? No. Could I have done better? Absolutely. And realizing that me having this resentment to that individual really meant nothing in the long run, because now that they're gone, I miss them and I can't fix anything. It is truly looking at the situation for what it is and saying, this is where we're at, and all I can do is move forward. Now imagine how amazing that feels. Imagine you climbing a mountain. And we're going to try to apply the stages of grief to climb the mountain. And you're at the foot of this mountain and you're looking up at Everest and you're like, I can't believe I'm here. There's no way I'm going to climb this thing. There's no chance in hell. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. There's your denial. And then you start the process and it's, oh my God, it's cold. Oh God, it hurts. My hands are hurting. My back is cramping up. This sucks. Why did anyone try to convince me to do this? There's your anger. Then you get a good distance up Everest and you're like, yeah, I could take a break. It's not that bad, I could say I tried. I have a picture of me on this mountain so I can say I was here. So do I really have to make it to the top? Well, no, not really. And you're trying to talk yourself out of the situation. There's your bargaining. You're making it your way up. You get a good distance up again, and it just sucks. You're cold, you're tired, you're stressed out, you're hungry, you're thirsty. You have to use the bathroom. You have to pee off the side of a cliff. You can't really go anywhere. You're just locked up, and you're feeling like crap. It is what it is, and it's not a fun feeling. And there's your depression. And then your acceptance is when you make it to the summit and you get to look over and say, you know what, this was one of the hardest things I did in my life, but I made it and I am here. I climbed this mountain. And that feeling is what everybody tries to chase. Again, you're not going to get to acceptance unless you go through the stages and you do the work. It is what it is. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Now, the other thing you got to understand is that with these stages, they don't always come in the same order. It really is individual to a lot of people, like I was saying before, right? Some people come to acceptance at the beginning and then they fall into a depression, and then it almost works backwards. So this person has passed away. You're like, yeah, John is gone. It is what it is. We got to move forward with life. And then you're sitting there, and then a week later, 2 weeks later, you start to feel that person not being there. You start to realize, I can't call them if I wanted to. You go on social media, and you're like, they will never post a story. They will never do a post. I will never be able to wake up, go on my Instagram, and see a story about this person. I will not be able to go to this person's house for dinner. I will never be able to hang out with this person again. Then you start to realize that, though you've accepted that they've passed and you hit that euphoric stage early, now the depression kicks in because you're like, no, this is true. This is not going to happen. And then you kind of go into bargaining, then anger, and then whatever. So there's no actual set order with this. And even if you reach acceptance, it doesn't guarantee you're going to keep it. You really have to do the work and kind of work through this in a way that works best for you as that individual. Now let's take it away from being all grim and doom and gloom with the death of a loved one, and let's swing it into a relationship sense or a friendship sense. Now, one thing I always hear from people is, when you go through that type of loss, whether it's a relationship or a friendship, do the no contact rule. I don't think this should be a rule. I think that when you come to that point of acceptance, this just becomes a natural progression. And I know it takes a while for people to get there. I know at the beginning you're going to want to call this person and talk to this person all the time. But to actively be like, no, I'm just not going to talk to them because they pissed me off so much and they left me and they don't want to talk to me and blah, 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 blah. Like, if you can't handle that, then this makes no sense. Like, if you truly can't sit back and be like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm good if I don't talk to this person. I'm good if they don't reach out. I'm good if we don't have communication. Like, it's not a great feeling because obviously you care for the person, but I'm okay if it doesn't happen. Until you can do that, this is a horrible thing for you. Because if you're a person who has an anxious attachment style, this sucks for you. Like, this is going to throw you into depression because you're going against your trigger, and your trigger is no contact with that person. Your trigger is avoiding that person, pushing them out of your life. You probably had like disagreements about this person being a little bit more of an avoidant and kind of taking their space. So you actively saying I'm not going to talk to them when everything you want to do is talk to this person, that's just going to damage your nervous system and it's going to mess you up even more. So I don't think it necessarily works for everybody. Now, two, if you're an avoidant person, no contact rule works great. I don't have to talk to you. You don't have to reach out to me. I'm good. And I never have to worry about you again. So I don't think it works for everyone. I think it's individual to people. And I do say that no matter what, function in what you want. If your goal is to try to reconcile things with people, then try. And if it doesn't work, you will get to a point where you will feel it and be like, nope, they don't want to be here. That's okay. And you will naturally come to that acceptance and you will naturally be able to deal with that no contact because now you're actively choosing it because you've seen that this is the only resolution that happens. You come to an acceptance that that person does not want to be in your life. That person does not want to talk to you. That person does not want to see you. Sometimes you need to try and fail to understand that this is how it is, right? There's an old West Indian saying where they say, who doesn't hear will feel. You have to feel it to know that, like, no, this is not going to work. This person does not want to reconcile with me. This person does not want to communicate. Because if they did, they would. I go into a relationship, you put in your effort, right? You go in, you put in your effort. You say, I care about this person, so I will do for this person. It just is what it is. You care for the people that you care for. And it falls apart organically. It's never a situation where it's like, oh, I'm going to choose to just not, no, none of that. It just falls apart. You ride till the wheels fall off, and when they fall off, you can say, hey, listen, I did everything I could. I am only one entity in this party. If it fell off, it was supposed to fall off because it wasn't going to work with the dynamic that's present. So for me, it just naturally occurs that you get to the point where you're like, I don't need to talk to them. If they want to talk to me, that's great. If they want to have communication, that's amazing. But you don't need it. And you truly believe you don't need it. You're not just trying to follow some weirdo's advice on the internet who's like, just don't talk to them. It's all good. No. If you're not built for that and it's causing you more stress, then don't worry about it, right? If you want to reach out, then reach out. If it doesn't work, you'll start to feel it in yourself and you'll come to your acceptance and you'll be fine. Now, it's funny because it's like they almost work in reverse sometimes. So I've heard this from a lot of people. I've watched videos and studies and I read it in a few books where they say that, like, a relationship, there is loss on both ends, but it depends on how it ended, what type of loss you feel. So if you're the person who got left, you go through the 5 stages of grief, right? The denial, the bargaining, all of that stuff. And you work from, this is a horrible experience, to, okay, I'm good and I can keep it moving. The person who left is usually, it's like a reverse before it gets better. It's like a loop. It goes like this. So if you're the person who was left, it's like this. It's like you're at the pit and you work your way up the mountain. But the person who leaves you, it's like they start at the summit, they drop to the bottom, and they come back up. So a lot of the times it's the person that left you, unless they left for legitimate reasons. Like they felt I gave 100% and it's just not working. It is what it is. And you get that like infinite acceptance, or that ultimate acceptance, I should say. They go through the loop, right? They leave and then they feel this like state of relief. They're like, oh my God, I don't got to deal with this nonsense anymore. This person was pissing me off. They were causing all these problems. I am stress free. All right. There's that song out with, I think it's Shensia right now. You know what I mean? That everybody's singing right now, where it's like, you move on. I'm good. I'm good. I'm out of this. I'm good. Like, I don't got to deal with this nonsense anymore. And you feel relief that you don't have to deal with that. And then you feel elated because now you're living without that. You're living without that person around because you've now attached all your negativity in your life to that one individual. And they're the ones who's just wreaking havoc on your nervous system. So you feel elated now that, like, everything's good. You don't have to deal with it. And then what often happens is there is a point of remorse. It always happens. And most of the time, as the person who was left, you'll never know this unless they tell you. But there is a state of remorse. There is the time where they go to that restaurant that you guys went to and they feel some type of way. Or they see some couple walking down the street and they feel some type of way. So there is always remorse because they were part of that party too. They also had memories and experiences and positive experiences as well. With the relationship. And even if it was like a bad relationship, even if it was a very toxic environment for you, even if there was abuse in any way, shape, or form, like a lot of the times you'll still see that. You'll still see that person be like, no, like there's things about them that I miss. There's instances that we had that were amazing and like now they're gone. So you're going through, it's a withdrawal in a way, and both parties go through this. You go through a withdrawal in the relationship where now you're trying to figure out how this works without that individual. And how do I deal with the memory of it? How do I deal with whatever comes my way from it? How do I deal with running into friends that were present when we were together? How do I deal with I'm now have a new job and I work down the street from where they live? You know what I mean? Like little things like that. How do you deal with walking into that person somewhere? I personally always like to have a situation where like if I leave there's a reason, because again it doesn't work for me and it ends in an amicable way, because I don't want to deal with the awkwardness of like walking through the mall and I run into you and then there's so much unresolved stuff that like you can't even have a conversation. Whereas like now, if you get to that point where like you reach that level of acceptance that everything has happened and you truly are in a much better place with the situation, you walking into them is nothing. It's like walking into anybody. So it doesn't carry the same weight anymore. Now, the last thing that always happens is you go to that remorse and then usually there'll be some degree of regret, right? They regret the way things went. They regret the way that they acted in the situation. They regret like certain aspects of the relationship that just didn't work out, right? Maybe like, oh, we had this fight and we didn't need to, or this situation happened and we could have talked about it. I kind of regret not doing that. They don't necessarily regret leaving, but they do regret maybe things that they handled a certain way in the relationship, and they're going through that process. And once they hit that, then those 5 stages of grief may finally kick in for them. They may skip denial, they may skip anger, they may jump right into bargaining and then work your way up. But again, it's very individual for some people, right? Some people just have that personality where they just need their mental state just regulated before they can do any of this. Now, everybody asks, and again, I've had a lot of people kind of approach me both at work, just random like places and stuff like that, and ask me like, how do you deal with loss? And I think that is like the hardest question to answer, because I do truly believe that it is individual for everybody. It's based on what your tool set is. It's based on what you're good at, what you're not good at, what your experiences are. Like, it is legitimately like a fingerprint. It is one of the most personalized things for you. I could easily say, you know what, one of the things that helped me was going to the gym and being able to like invest into my body, but that won't work for everybody because this is something that I personally like doing and I personally developed as a positive habit and a good coping mechanism that you may not want or you may not be interested in. And before I got to this, I went through the shit too. It is what it is. I mean, I have just a full on moment of honesty with people because I don't believe that. I believe that the best way to connect to people is just being authentic. I was in a long term relationship, 12 years. We were married, we had a child, and the wheel started to fall off. And we did everything we could to salvage it. And it just got to a point where it was like, no, this is not going to work. And I would rather my son see us apart and functioning like adults, mature adults, healed adults who are not at each other's throats all the time, and he could see a positive relationship whether we're together or not, than to see just chaos. And that was something I personally said, like, this is what needs to happen. Initially it was, we're going to take some time apart and kind of find ourselves and figure out how we're going to do this, and it didn't work out that way, and that's fine. And I went through all these 5 stages of grief just like normal people. I will truly say that the depression stage was the hardest for me because I didn't really know how to deal with this. The loss I was used to before was people passing away. I lost a very, very, very good friend at an early age. I've lost a very good mentor in my uncle who passed away. So dealing with that loss was a lot easier for me because it was so finite. Like, I'm not going to see them again. So it is what it is. I don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to have to think about, like, oh, like, how do I deal with them moving forward? Like, there is no moving forward. They are gone. And I just had to find that acceptance in me that it happened. This was different. This one, there's my child involved who I'm going to be involved in their life no matter what. So I will have to see this person. I will have to work with this person. We will have to put together a positive structure for him on 2 different realms of the earth now, right? We're not under the same roof. We're not making decisions together. We have to make individual decisions for ourselves for the betterment of the child. And this was hard. And for myself, it took me a long time to kind of get past it because I felt like I did so much and I put so much into it. And this person was just moving on. It didn't take long, right? So for me, it was like, here I am dying from this. And for this person, it was just so easy. And I think that's just, I don't know, people say it's a gender thing. Like, women tend to kind of like jump into something quicker than men. I don't know for sure. I can just speak from my story. It was rough. It was rough. And I got into some very bad habits at the time. I started drinking, started using marijuana like excessively. Like, I didn't know how to manage this. And I really had to go through it to understand that, like, this doesn't work. I was hanging out with people who were going through stuff themselves, and this is how they coped. So I figured this would work for me. And lo and behold, they didn't get any better. And I was sitting there one day just having a moment, and I'm like, is this really doing anything? Like, I don't feel any better. I don't feel like this has changed my life in any way, shape, or form. This has not improved my situation. It is just causing me more problems. And now it's causing me like health issues and all types of stuff. So I really had to take that moment and say, let me change something here. Like, actively, let me replace this habit with this habit. So every time I felt like I was off, or every time I felt that I was like going down the bad path and I just wanted to have something to drink, I said, let me go do like some push-ups. Let me go for a walk. Let me go clear my head. And a lot of this happened over COVID. And for anyone in Canada, you guys know the lockdowns were a bitch. So having that was hard. There was really not much you could do to distract yourself. But I think it worked in my favor because now I couldn't go actively do these things. Like it wouldn't be me be going to a bar because there was no bar, right? I had to go outside. If we were drinking, we were going to a friend's house. Like it kind of helped focus my mind a little bit. So I think the timing was amazing. So when people ask me this, like, how do you deal with a loss? I'm like, honestly, there's only three things that I believe will work. And they're still very simple, but still very individual to the person. So I always say the three things that you need to do are first, you have to acknowledge how you feel. You have to acknowledge the fact that you're hurt. You have to acknowledge the fact that you're in pain. You're going through the grieving process. Seeing this person's photo upsets you. Like, you're going to be angry, you're going to be sad, you're going to be happy, you're going to go through a whole slew of stuff, and it's going to come in waves. There's never a linear thing, it's always in a cycle. We need to realize it comes into a cycle. I'll talk about that in a second. But you have to acknowledge the feelings that you're feeling from it. You have to understand that, like, the emotion and the feelings are telling you that something is off. Pain tells you something is wrong. So to deny it makes no sense. To deny it is you going back to the denial phase. You will never heal in that state. You have to acknowledge how you feel. You have to feel the feeling, but do not let it control you. That's the first thing. So by acknowledging it and saying, yes, I feel like crap. Yes, this hurts. Yes, this sucks. That's the only way you're going to start working into a positive direction, because if you don't have a diagnosis, you don't have a cure. So you need to know and you need to identify, yes, something is wrong. To seek support. There are people there who will help you. If it's not professional, it's personal. If it's just being around somebody who's adds positivity and like good energy to your life, just somebody who has a good outlook on life is great. For me, it was hanging out with honest freaking people. It was those friends who are like, nah, I don't understand what you're thinking. When I had those days where I'm like, maybe I can call them and convince them. No, what would you call them for? Like, they've clearly moved on. Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you being stupid? Like, having those friends for me was big, but I got tough skin, so I need those people. But just seek the support. Don't do it by yourself. You have avenues out there. You have people that want to help you through it. You have family. You have friends. You have professionals who deal with this stuff. Just go get the help. Go get the support. Even if it's not somebody there sitting you through a session, like just having somebody to vent to and just get it out of your system and keep it moving. But you have the support, so go out and seek those people that will support you. And three, start to develop healthy coping mechanisms. And when I say healthy, I think it's very broad for some people, because I know some people who I was like, oh, how do you cope with it? Oh, I drink. Well, that's not healthy. Yeah, it is. It works for me. I can't argue with them. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Right? For me, the gym was huge. For me, getting it back into martial arts was huge, because fighting for that discipline again was amazing for me. And burning my body out had a better overall experience. I could go drinking and freaking feel like crap in the morning, or I can go to the gym and feel like crap in the morning. But which one is helping me progress overall? That's how I had to look at it. Me going to the gym and waking up in the morning and feeling sore, yes, it is a crappy feeling, especially after a leg day when you can't move and you can't sit down. But do I rather feel that and know that my muscles are getting stronger and my body is getting healthier than putting poison into my system that's just going to destroy it? So it's finding those coping mechanisms that will benefit you in the long run to whatever your goal is. And that's what I mean by healthy. If my plan is to live as long as I can for my child, great. What coping mechanisms do I need to establish that I can do when I'm going through the rough spots that will help me get to that point? That's how you got to look at this thing. And it takes you sometimes doing the bad stuff to figure out what the good stuff is. You kind of got to, if you don't hear, you'll feel. Like, you kind of have to go through the negatives. sometimes. So there's people I knew who were addicts. They went through a traumatic situation. They became addicted to all types of shit. I'm not gonna out their business, but it wasn't until they almost overdosed where they were like, "This is horrible. Why am I doing this? This is not benefiting me. I could have died here. Like, there's no point for this." And then that's when they started to make that transcendence. They now own a fucking gym. Like, if you talk to them, they'll tell you straight up, yeah, I was addicted to X, Y, and Z. I almost died in a freaking staircase in my condo. And coming out of that is what made me realize what my purpose was and then moving towards your purpose. So really it's just acknowledge your feelings, get the support you need to support, and develop some healthy coping mechanisms to what you want in the future. That's the three best piece of advice I can give anybody who's going through the loss. Now, some things that I kind of want people just to remember, and this is just going to be sidebar. If anyone wants like an in-depth of this, like just throw it in the comments, hit me a message, and I can put something together. If you really want to touch on any of these in depth, I can do another video for that. But some things to remember is that what you're feeling is not forever. Just know that it's not forever. The crappy feeling is not forever. Even your happiness, when you feel great, it's not going to be forever. I was a well, now I'm a huge reader. Before, I didn't like reading at all, especially in high school. But the one book that I could truly say I read numerous times and I still read it today is The Outsiders. And any millennials who went to high school, most of you guys probably read this book. And it was about a young guy who was like pretty much trying to navigate being brought into a gang and like figuring out life, if I remember correctly. But one thing that was told to him is nothing gold can stay. And I stick to this religiously. You'll probably hear this in my previous podcast episodes. Nothing gold can stay. Everything ends. Everything. Your anger ends. Your happiness will end. Your sadness will end. Your relationship at some point will end. Even if you've been together forever, eventually one of you will pass away and it will end. Your family dynamic will end. Everything has an end point. So if we think of it that way, then you have to understand the feelings that you're feeling right now will end. And it's hard because when you're in the thick of it, it's like, no, there's no way every day I'm feeling like this, but it's such a small microcosm of your life. So don't sweat it. It will pass. Everything passes. Your feelings will not be forever. That goes for the bad and the good feelings. You can't wake up on Monday and be like, oh, I feel happy and expect that you're going to be happy forever. No, you have to live in a life that will give you more experiences of happiness and joy. It's not just going to be it happens one time and stays forever. I love my son. I'm happy when I'm around my son, but sometimes my son gets on my nerves. So some days I'm very happy with him, and some days I'm just kind of like, Nothing stays. So the feelings you are feeling will eventually fade and be replaced. And just know that you can handle it. Is it hard? Yeah. Does it suck? Yeah. Is it something that you probably at that point in time have never dealt with because it's causing you so much? Absolutely. But you're resilient. You, with the right things, doing the right things, handling it the right way, you'll be fine. You'll handle it. Will you make some mistakes? Yes. Will you do some dumb stuff? Absolutely. But you can handle it. There's no other alternative. You can handle it. It's hard. But a firm believer that God does not put anything in your path that you cannot handle. Sometimes maybe you just need somebody to help you with it. Sometimes you just need to look at it a different way. Sometimes you need to just build up resilience. And the only way you're going to do that is by doing the negative stuff to learn how to do the positive things. You just need to invest in yourself and say, hey, I got this. Let me figure out how to do it. And you'll do it. So just remember, you can handle it. You're fine. Just toughen up. You're going to have to toughen up and get it done. That being said, remember to be gentle with yourself. Yeah, you can handle it, but yeah, you're going to have an off day. Yeah, you've now dedicated yourself to just being in the gym all the time and really monitoring your diet, and you're making such good progress. And then that one day you had the piece of cake and you feel bad. Like, be gentle with yourself. You have a 2 weeks where you feel great, and you wake up that Tuesday and you feel horrible. All the emotions are hitting you, and you're sitting there wondering, well, why do I care? Why do I feel like this? That's normal. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not setting yourself back. You're human. And as a human, you will feel things and you will go through things. So have that grace with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. You don't have to figure it all out today. You don't have to be perfect. Grief is a journey. Grief is the emotional response. Grieving is the journey. One end to the other end, and anything can happen in between. You'll be on this trip and you run out of gas. You'll be on this trip and you have to use the bathroom. You'll be on this trip and you have to replace a tire. It happens. There's nothing more you could have done. You're not deluding yourself. You're not doing any of that. Like, you are human, and you will have mistakes. You will make mistakes in your life. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make you any of that. Have some grace and be gentle with yourself. Now, remember when I said everything is a cycle. This process is a cycle. It's not a straight line. There is no A to B. Yes, it's a journey, but we're going in loops. You will have the cycle. You will have the denial, then the anger, then the bargaining, then the depression, then the acceptance, and it can start again, and it can start again. You will have stretches where it's amazing, and then you loop back to that crappy feeling again. You can have points where you're coming out of that depression and then it just hits you again. There is no linear path to it. It's just a cycle over and over and over. And you either want to break the cycle or you want to minimize the cycle to however you want it. So if you have like 2 weeks where everything's great and you have one day that's off, that's not a bad cycle. Just know it might happen again and just be prepared for it. How you feel is reasonable. It's reasonable. Because it's so individual, it's reasonable. Don't let anybody tell you, oh, well, I don't understand why you're being like that. That's so stupid. I would never do X. That's you. Maybe it didn't mean that much to you. I had so many people coming up to me and trying to give me advice. And I thanked them for it. But I also looked at their situation and said I would understand why yours is the way it is. There was this one guy, older gentleman. He had such a negative outlook on marriage, and he's like, "Oh, you know what? You're in a great place. Forget that. Da 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 da. Don't feel any type of way." I'm like, maybe you didn't like your partner, but I did, and we had a great life. So, you explaining things the way you want to explain things, and you telling me how you felt is how you felt, not how I felt. I'm justified in feeling the way I'm feeling. It's not going to be forever, but I'm justified in it. Maybe it meant more to me than it meant to you. Maybe having a kid made a difference. Maybe the decisions that were made before and wherever the problem started to arise was different. So how you feel is reasonable because it's how you feel and how you're taking in that situation. Now, what I want everyone to also take into consideration is what you do after. This can be a positive thing. Grief can lead to positivity. And you need to find the meaning in it. You have to look at it and say, well, why am I feeling the grief from the situation? Why does it hurt? Simple. It mattered. It was important. And in accepting that, you start to think, well, what does it mean for me moving forward? So if it's your husband and you lost your husband and you're feeling the grief from it, well, why are you feeling the grief? Well, this is a person that mattered to me. This is a person that looked out for me, a person that cared for me, a person that loved me, that's no longer there. If it's a relationship, well, this is a person that I invested into time, effort, money, emotion, all of that. So, of course, it hurt because it meant something, it had value. So, when I say find meaning in the grief, it's, well, what was the value there that now I need to figure out? And remember, you're not alone. It feels like it. It feels like nobody will ever understand what you're going through because it's just so personal and individual to you, and that's fine. But just because they're not going through the exact same thing that you went through doesn't mean you can't connect to them on it. Everyone's gone through loss. Everyone's gone through grief. My grief may be different. My situation may be different, but the feeling that I felt is no different than yours. And we have to develop the same emotional resilience to move past it. So maybe me just communicating with a person and talking about it can help me do that. And the last thing is withdrawal is normal. You're going to go through it. That person's gone. That pet is gone. That relationship is done. That job that you loved so much is gone. You're suffering through a loss. Something is no longer there. It's like anybody in any situation. If you're an addict, if you're an alcoholic, it doesn't matter. You're going to go through a withdrawal phase. Because now your body and your mind and your spirit all have to adjust to the absence of that thing, the absence of that individual. Withdrawal is not fun, but it happens to everybody. And once you get through that aspect of it, that's when you can start building. And usually when people start going through that anger phase, it's because that's when the withdrawal is starting to really kick in. Loss is not easy, guys. Moving on from loss is very difficult, but do remember that it is a journey and not a destination. So for anybody out there who this resonated with, for anybody who learned something today, anybody who's going through any type of loss, like, I feel for you. I've been there. I will be there again. It's never going to be something that's just done and gone. But have grace with yourself and protect your heart.